we're recording this only a few days after the Oscar nominations have been announced. So like we like to do around here, we do our little bit of reaction to it. I mean, we can talk about it a little bit and then like kick the show off for real and then maybe pick it up after the intro. Because I feel like, you know, our tendency is to go a little bit long on this one.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot of categories. There's a lot of politics, you know. Did you read through the nominations? Was there anything that really like jumped out at you?
Other than EMILIA PEREZ?
Yeah. I mean, 13 nominations, the most for any foreign language movie.
For a movie that from like, I haven't seen it yet and I know you have, and I might have to force myself to see it just to see what the deal is. But for a movie that got like mixed reviews, that apparently misrepresented a lot of like Mexican culture, apparently, or like butchered the Spanish language, didn't have good music for a musical. Like, I'm shocked. And I have no doubt that it's a reflection of who was elected president and some of the policies that he has. And the fact that California has always been like a democratic state, right? Like a left-leaning political state. And the Oscars have always been sort of like or they've tried to anyway, try to fight for the minority group. And it never comes off authentic that way. It seems like a lot of political pandering. It always seems like they're late to the game. I don't know if you remember when Everything Everywhere All at Once won, and then there was the whole Crazy Rich Asian thing. Yeah. Right. And it just sometimes it feels like pandering. I don't feel like either of those two movies really deserve the critical success that they got. Like, never mind the financial stuff. I think that's all great, but I don't know, from an objective point of view, I just felt like there were much stronger films that year. And for political reasons, EMILIA PEREZ is getting its time of day, I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's wasn't in obviously any of the rooms where the Netflix people were debating, you know, their strategy on this one. But obviously they felt like it was going to be a good pick for them. And they put a lot of money behind it. They obviously, you know, they're campaigning in all these categories. That's not a small investment, you know, to buy out all those billboards and ads and various publications. So they see it as like their best chance at getting a Best Picture win this year from anything they acquired. They might win. Like, actually, they might win. I mean, they might win in certain categories, but I feel like certainly their star, Carla Sofia Gascon, her chances took a huge hit yesterday or maybe the day before because a journalist dug up a bunch of old tweets that she had posted back in like 2020, 2021. What'd she say? Lots of really objectionable stuff about like Islamophobic stuff, anti-black stuff, like siding with Hitler in one case. See, this is why I don't like award shows, because it just gets political. Yeah. And so it's like, you know, like granted, we shouldn't award poor behavior. We never should. But at the same time, there's always, like, if you look at all these nominees, and I'm sure some of them are nice, but I'm sure some of those people are not nice. Yeah. I mean, and there's the thing, right? I mean, there's the work and then there's the person who does it, right? So like, she has this inspirational story where she transitioned at a time when she was already established in the industry. So mid-career, takes this big risk to transitions and, you know, starts working under her, you know, it's a new name, it's everything. And but then that doesn't necessarily mean that the person she is in her private life or like semi-private life, because it's obviously stuff that she was posting on Twitter, is all that great, right? And it's going to be super awkward at the ceremony because, like, does she attend the ceremony now? Like, after, you know, does Conan O'Brien make jokes about what she posted? It's going to be weird. This is the Woody Allen conundrum. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So like, I mean, Woody Allen just never went to the ceremony, so it was easy for him. But same with like Roman Polanski, right? Like they've made great films, but they're horrible people. Yes. Yeah. So it's objection who've done like terrible things. But anyway, let's go back to the nominees. I don't think, other than EMILIA PEREZ, I don't think there was any thing that really surprised me. Maybe Wicked, because everyone I talked to didn't think Wicked was that great. But again, if you if you expand Best Picture to 10 pictures, there's going to be films there that, you know, aren't necessarily like elite or top tier. But I will say that though, like, and I feel like I say this every year, but this year definitely, it's just not a strong year.
I mean, yeah, you do say it every year, but
but not last year. Last year, I thought they were like legit good films.
Yeah, I mean,
the year that Oppenheimer won.
I have my ones that I'm rooting for this year. Like I would like to see ANORA clean up a few categories. I would like, you know, I haven't seen The Brutalist yet. I'm planning to see it in the next couple of days, but I can see how certain categories they have a front runner a little early. Like people have been talking about Adrien Brody as the front runner for Best Actor for a long time. So it doesn't seem like that category is super close, to the point that like they're saying that Kieran Culkin may win for Best Supporting Actor. And that's a conversation of its own because he's kind of the co-lead of A Real Pain. And the fact that's
but that's like, that comes down to like a lot of DiCaprio stuff too. Like where he's running.
But like, it's something where like Searchlight figured that if Adrien Brody was the front runner for Best Actor, then they didn't want to put Kieran Culkin in that category. So they decided to put him in Best Supporting, even though you could argue that he's not really a supporting character. So they figured that he had a better chance of winning a category that wasn't already didn't already have a front runner. So it's that kind of like gamesmanship type stuff where you're like,
always happens every year.
It does happen. But I mean, it tends to happen in years when the categories are not super competitive.
I mean, I thought last year was a really, really strong year. And I don't say that a lot, but I mean, okay, let's look at like of the Best Picture nominees. Was there one that you thought that like really was like, wow, this is a great film. We're going to remember this for the next 5 years.
For me, it was ANORA. And I know I've been saying that for months, but I legitimately think that it was one of the best times that I had in the theater all of last year. So for me, that's Best Picture for me. I mean, is that the kind of
it's not going to win Best Picture.
Probably not, right? I mean, like The Brutalist seems like the kind of movie that would more appeal to the typical Oscar voter, you know, in that sense. If
ANORA was stacked up against last year's nominees, would it win?
Probably not, no, because it's running against Oppenheimer and Barbie. I mean,
American Fiction was brilliant, I thought. Anatomy of a Fall was really great.
Yeah.
Killers of the Flower Moon I thought was really underrated. Like, and you had Past Lives, which is kind of like a similar tier of like a lower budget film that had a lot of emotion as well, and The Holdovers too. So I love ANORA. I think it's a great film. Of the nominees, though, it might be my favorite. Granted, I haven't seen all of them. Conclave, I don't know. No one's going to remember that movie next year. I'm sorry.
No,
it's not. Doom Part 2, blockbuster, well done technically.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people are going to... I don't know what it is about Dune, but it maybe feels inaccessible to a lot of people. It never seems to be like as big a success as I hope it to be or want it to be. It's almost too niche. I don't know.
It is a little niche. I mean, I will say that like it was for a long time, it was one of the highest grossing movies of the year. So it does make sense to have it in there. If the intention of Best Picture is to, you know,
it's the Dark Knight effect.
Yeah. For the things that are like big audience, type of movies. This year there wasn't really any big Marvel movies to compete, so
Marvel should never win Best Picture for anything anyway.
Well, I know, but you know how it is. Like one movie wins and then the other ones get, you know, it's an honor just to be nominated. So then, you know, it's that's kind of the way it goes. So like, you know, if you've got a big blockbuster, it gets the nomination and then people feel, oh, okay, the Academy is being kind of nice to the ones that are like the blockbusters that don't really have a chance of winning because at least they get a nomination.
We're actually 10 minutes into this cold open conversation. I just noticed.
Yes. I know. Should we start and then come back on? Okay.
That's it.
Welcome to the Extra Buttery Podcast. It's a show about movies, TV, anything with a story and actors on a screen, really. Join Jason Chan and Robert Snow's free-flowing conversation with deep dives into characters and plot with the occasional salty opinion. So get your popcorn, I got mine right here. Let's start the show!
Welcome to the 130th episode of the Extra Buttery Podcast. My name is Jason Chen in Vancouver. Joining me is Robert Snow in Toronto. We're right in the middle of a conversation. We just needed to reintroduce ourselves at some point, I guess.
Yeah, we actually needed to do it. You know, I mean, it's so we are right in the middle of the Oscars, but we will be talking about a few of the titles in detail, like A Real Pain, A Complete Unknown, The Apprentice. All of those are coming up a little bit later in the show. But right now we're in the midst of the nomination breakdown.
There wasn't, like, as far as the other categories go, there weren't any huge surprises, I thought.
No. Of the Best Picture nominees, I've seen 5. I'll probably end up seeing at least 2 more, maybe. I don't think I'm going to make it through all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm probably not going to watch Wicked.
The ones...
Did you watch Wicked?
No, that's one of the ones I might make, but I mean, it's 2 hours 40, so it's...
it's also part 1 of 2.
I know.
The Substance, I've heard good things, but I'm
a little scared.
Body horror.
I'm a little scared. I've heard, like, you know, I have a better threshold for gore than you do, but yes. I've heard that this is definitely up there, and I don't know if I got it in me, but
it's one of those films where it's so gory I can't really see it on the big screen. I feel like war movies are different for me, but like anything that involves body horror and like self-mutilation,
supernatural, yeah,
exactly. I'm hoping ANORA wins a lot of these. I'm hoping EMILIA PEREZ gets shut out, as it should. I mean,
to me, okay, the thing with EMILIA PEREZ is that, and we talked about this a little bit in the opener, but EMILIA PEREZ feels to me like the Green Book of its era, where it's a lot of people patting themselves on the back for making something that's allegedly so inclusive. But when you really look at it, it's not inclusive at all. And it's kind of just like the director is like a white, older French guy who's kind of appropriating a bunch of other communities for the sake of this story.
Would you lay similar criticism to your favorite film of all time in La La Land?
A
little bit, right? A little bit. Not to the same degree.
Well, at least it's like, that's a white guy making a movie about white people. So
saving black music.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm just joking with you. Like,
I know. But it's a fair point. I mean, I'd love to know what you think about it when you see it, because to me, it's a chore to watch. The music is not music. It is not, people describe it as a musical, and there are things that kind of are framed like songs, but they are not memorable. The lyrics are weird. It's more like talk singing than real singing.
Okay.
There are aspects to the performances that are good. I'd say Zoe Saldana is probably the best of them, but they don't give her a whole lot to work with. Her character is not her character is more like an audience proxy, and kind of like she facilitates other things in the plot. So you don't really get to know her necessarily. I feel like it's the kind of thing that's got a big number of nominations next to its name, but it's not going to win a lot.
Knowing how political it can get, I can see them sidestepping this. Kind of like, okay, we're gonna push EMILIA PEREZ. We're gonna show how progressive we are. We're gonna show them how woke we are, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then people are gonna push back against them. They'd be like, oh, well, no, like, you know, it's just, we're gonna go in another direction now. Because as we know, not every voter has watched every single film.
And you saw a taste of the backlash to EMILIA PEREZ even when it picked up Best Musical at the Globes. There were a lot of people like doing little side-by-sides showing like, this movie won Best Musical, and they show a clip of like one of the bad songs from EMILIA PEREZ, and then cut next to a clip of like Defying Gravity from Wicked. And it's like, no, one of these is really a musical, the other one's not. So, you know, that's a taste of what's coming, I think.
Other than ANORA for Best Picture, were there any nominees that you were like rooting for, or like were really like pleasantly surprised that were nominated? Because I can think of one for me. Like, there's one nominee that I'm like super happy about.
Okay, I will say that I'm really glad that Dune Part 2 is in there.
Okay.
Like we were saying, it is niche, so obviously, but I'm in that niche. So,
but it's also like a very technically well done film.
Yes.
And it has merits. So I can see why it's Best Picture. It's just, it's not the Best Picture.
What was the one that you were thinking of?
Eager.
Oh, well, yeah, Nora. Okay.
Yeah, Eager. I love this character. I thought he was fantastic. I'm surprised he got nominated, but he deserves it. I just didn't think ANORA would be such like a big enough film, and this actor Yuri Borisov to be such like to get such attention, because usually this Best Supporting Actor category is kind of like the cut below the top 5 best actors.
Yeah.
And they're really best actors, but like entered in the supporting actor category. And it's always like a really tough category to get nominated in.
Yeah. And now with Kieran Culkin there, I mean, we'll talk about A Real Pain in a little more detail in a minute, but does Kieran Culkin kind of come in and swoop it away from Yuri Borisov just because he's the...
Well, Yuri Borisov is not going to win. I'm sorry, but he's number 5.
Oh, you're saying that you're glad that he's in there at all.
Yeah, I'm glad he's in there at all. Same with Isabella Rossellini as Best Supporting Actress. I thought she was great in Conclave. I don't know about you, but
no, she's got a great character in that.
Yeah. But I'm just surprised that she got nominated. Like pleasantly surprised in a good way, because I didn't expect it.
I'm glad to see in the animation category. It's nice to see that Latvian movie Flow get nominated, because that one I've been meaning to see it, but it's from what I know about it from when it was at the Toronto Festival, it's like done without dialogue. So it's like an animated story about animals, but no dialogue, and with a kind of like
awesome
innovative visual style. So, you know, I like it when the animation category can kind of recognize other sorts of animation that are not just CGI animation. I mean, Inside Out 2 is in the category this year, and they're very likely going to win it because it's Pixar, but
I don't think so.
No? You think maybe Wallace and Gromit or Wild Robot?
Well, I haven't seen Flow or Memoir of a Snail, but I think it's those two, because I've seen Inside Out 2 and I've seen The Wild Robot. I think The Wild Robot maybe has a better chance, but neither of those two films are like on the same level as the other animated films that have won in the past. Like the bar is so high right now, right? But Inside Out 2 pales in comparison to the first one. I actually, on a certain level, thought Inside Out 2 was very unoriginal and formulaic and lacked creativity.
Ooh, spicy. Okay. I mean, I agree with you. It's a sequel, so I mean, it's not going to, there's no way it could ever live up to the original. But
and it didn't need a sequel. Honestly,
not really.
I didn't think it.
No.
Yeah, I didn't think it needed. Wallace and Gromit, like these are all like technically great films. Like the art is great, the direction is great, the animation is great, but I'm looking for something beyond that. I'm looking for like originality, something you can't do in live action, right? So and that's why I thought Inside Out was the first one was so great, because they like managed to like visualize emotions in this like really funny sort of dramatic film.
Well, no, but I don't know though. Like, you know, Pixar is such a brand in Hollywood. Like, as much as we may have quibbles with like the creativity of it being a sequel and everything, does it still win the category just because it's Pixar and it's a known quantity?
That's what I don't want.
I know. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it might happen.
Yeah, of course it might happen. Yeah, it is what it is. Again, this is why I'm not huge into like the award stuff.
We will have to compare notes. I mean, I am going to be where you are the night of the Oscars. So I'm going to be in Vancouver on the day of the Oscars. So
you are?
I think there may be like a Oscars watch party in our future, maybe, if I can twist your arm enough.
Well, there's a one at VIF. It's like 10
Well, there you go.
Well, yeah.
We should go.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, I want to watch the Oscars. So, I mean, if I'm going to be in Vancouver, and if you're not going to be too cranky about seeing it.
No, I won't. Like, if you're there, I will probably, I'd be happy to go.
All right.
But it's not something I would watch on my own.
Okay. Yeah, because we just do our Statler and Waldorf. We do our Statler and Waldorf routine, so like we might as well record it as a live podcast.
Yeah.
In the theater.
And honestly, I think that it's free popcorn all night.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So
I don't know. I'd rather watch, like, even if it's like a meaningless like basketball game or a hockey game, I'd rather watch that. But anyway, all right. Do you want to get into the stuff that we've watched?
Yeah. So I think maybe I can talk about Nosferatu a little bit. I know you haven't seen it yet.
Don't spoil it too much.
No. It did pick up, I think, 1 or 2 nominations.
Yes.
At the Oscars, certainly for cinematography. I don't know about like editing and
production design.
Oh, production design. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, it is definitely. I mean, if you know Robert Eggers, director of The Witch and The Lighthouse and The Northman, it's a very familiar style. I mean, you just go into it, you feel instantly at home if you've seen his previous movies. He's adapting a 1922 horror movie, one of the first vampire movies ever made.
This creature is a force more powerful than evil. Its desire is to consume all life on Earth.
He's trying to pay tribute to this like over 100-year-old movie, while also like, casting actors who have interacted with cell phones and, putting a little, not really a modern twist on it because it's very much set in the same time period as the original, applying, more modern filmmaking techniques to kind of achieve really creepy environments and feelings, from his camera moves and all of that. So it draws you in really well. The performers are all like top notch. He achieves some really cool, like there's this effect when Nicholas Holt's character gets out of a carriage in this like foggy road approaching Nosferatu's castle. Mm-hmm. And he's just doing like a dolly zoom type effect, but it really like closes the scene around him in this really interesting way. And you really feel the presence of the vampire approaching him, even though he's not physically on camera. Bill Skarsgård is excellent as the vampire. Just like,
doesn't he just look like one?
Yeah, I mean he doesn't need a lot of help, but like they make him look really gross. Like he's not the kind of sexy Gary Oldman vampire from Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola movie. He's definitely like aged and like partially undead, but big long fingernails. He's talking in a very thick Transylvanian accent. They're doing all this stuff with sound to kind of like exaggerate his footsteps. So like when he's walking around, it's just like big thundering boom, boom sort of sounds. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you really do feel the presence of him on camera. And yeah, I think so far it's been Robert Eggers' best performing movie to date financially. So obviously it's connecting with people, and he's already greenlit for his next one. So woohoo. Yes. Robert Eggers.
Where does this rank compared to his other films?
I think maybe I would put it like The Witch for me is still pretty high up there because it's, even though it's like an early film of his, it's like his first feature. It kind of sticks in my mind a little more. But I would put it above The Northman. I liked The Northman, but
it's a tough watch.
Yeah, there's certain things about it like
it was tiring mentally. It was just a little much.
Technically speaking, I liked it a lot. I liked a lot of the plot. There was some of the character dynamics that I didn't really buy, I would say. But in Nosferatu, it's a lot more cohesive, and it feels like really solid, and like you can really sink your teeth into it.
I like that. So, no, I love the cast because Lily Rose Depp is actually like quite good.
Yeah, I hadn't seen her in a lot of stuff before now, but she puts in a lot of really physical performance when she's being possessed by Nosferatu. She's like arching her back in these really like creepy ways. And the stuff that they do with the town kind of slowly succumbing to his influence is all really good. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and it's not I would say the ending has a little bit of gore in it, but for people who are worried about like the violence in it, it's not I've definitely seen way, way gorier movies before. So this is not too bad on that scale.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson, I think, is a solid actor. And Willem Dafoe is always good. Emma Corrin is actually quite good, too. So
I loved Willem Dafoe's character. I think he's playing a version of Van Helsing without going by that name. Okay. But and
without the crossbow.
Yeah. And I would say like the more you know about the Dracula story, the better off you'll be, because you'll be able to find your like your way through the story a little better, and you can kind of recognize certain characters are like, oh, okay, that's like a blending of those characters, or that's who this is supposed to be. And all of that is like inspired by the original Nosferatu. So it's nothing that like Eggers is doing. Like he's not like reinventing anything in that sense.
Okay, cool. You want to talk about A Real Pain?
Yeah, I just watched this last night.
Davers and I are cousins. We used to be joined at the hip. Our grandma was from here, so Dave arranged for us to join this geriatric Polish tour with you fine people.
That's the way we get by.
So I just want to start off by saying that like Jesse Eisenberg is very good at playing neurotic Jews.
Yes, I mean that's his whole character.
Yes, and if you've ever seen him in any other film, you would never cast him as Lex Luthor.
No, I'm still not entirely sure what Zack Snyder was driving at with that, other than just wanting the Mark Zuckerberg from The Social Network.
And again, plays like a neurotic character, and again, not Lex Luthor, but A Real Pain.
This is a tight little movie, just 90 minutes long.
I loved it. I love the runtime.
You know, it's not trying to have any more plot than it needs. You know, it's just got a small story to tell. It's very simple, but and so Jesse Eisenberg plays this guy who, you know, he used to have a more close relationship with his cousin, played by Kieran Culkin. In the past, they grew up together. They share a grandmother. Their grandmother passes away, and they decide to go on a trip together to Poland, where their grandmother is from, and kind of experience, you know, her background and visit the concentration camp that she survived during the Second World War, and visit her house that she lived in before she moved to America. It's through that trip that they are forced to spend the most time together that they have in years. And you get the sense immediately that like Jesse Eisenberg's character is a lot better established. He's got a wife at home and a kid, and you know he has a stable job. Whereas Kieran Culkin's character is very like basically homeless. It's not, they don't really put words to it, but they essentially, you know, they hint very strongly that his living situation is very chaotic, and he had this like tragedy in his background and stuff that, you know, informs some of his behavior, but he is this like wild, chaotic individual who is just trying to work through his grief in his own way, but it's a very different way than Jesse Eisenberg's character. And that's where a lot of the tension in the movie comes from.
It's a road trip movie.
Yeah. And so they're on this small tour with a few other folks who, mostly Jewish people, but then, led by this British guy who is just interested in Eastern Europe. And that's also a source of tension between Kieran Culkin's character and him, where, you know, Kieran Culkin's character feels like, you know, there should be more sensitivity paid to like the Polish aspect of the trip and everything. And but sometimes it's hard to kind of figure out like what Benji, Culkin's character, what Benji really wants. You know, he has a hard time kind of like really voicing what he wants. And so you're kind of, you kind of end up siding with the other tour members and with Jesse Eisenberg's character, David, a lot more, because, you know, Benji is just like all over the place. And you're just like, I don't know. As a viewer, you're like, what does he want? What is he motivated by? Like there's something we don't know yet. And it's frustrating.
I think we've seen like iterations of this film many times before, where it's just like 90 minutes of a person processing through pain and going through some sort of trauma and affecting those around him. I've seen with, it's just very well done. It's very well acted. I do like the structure, how like the beginning scene echoes the last scene at the airport. I think that was an interesting way to frame everything. I just feel like I've seen this movie like 50 other times before, you know, not with the same characters, fair, but like same sort of premise, you know. I thought Kieran Culkin was great. He really deserves all the accolades he gets. Apparently,
Jesse Eisenberg cast him in the role without having seen him in either Succession or any of his previous roles.
Oh, really?
Which is wild to me because, like, you know, the character of Benji feels tailor-made for Kieran Culkin and like the exact kind of energy that he's given off in his other roles. So to think that Jesse Eisenberg, just said, all right, I'm going to go with this guy without auditioning him, without knowing what kind of energy he brings to the part. And it just clicked so well.
Not the most original film, but one of those films that just kind of in any other year would just be really well received because of the way it's a very tight movie, I guess. I don't have much to say about it, honestly. It's a nice film. That's what I can say about it. It's a nice.
It's nice. Yeah. It's just like, you're introduced to the characters. They go through a few moments of tension. They come to some greater realization by the end of it. And, and then they're off back to their lives again. And the unique part is just the Polish aspect, like learning about Poland, seeing these characters experiencing, visiting the concentration camp and kind of dealing with that. And, and learning what you can about them from the dialogue they have together, because that's really all you have to go on. The plot is pretty light. These sorts of movies pop up at the Oscars, and they're just sort of a showcase for the acting and the writing, and that's all they really aspire to.
What about A Complete Unknown? What is that aspiring to?
That is aspiring to getting a lot of 60 and 70-year-old folk music fans to go to the movie theater.
I hear Bob is playing electric.
Not on our stage, he isn't.
They just want me singing Blowing in the Wind for the rest of my goddamn life.
Well, this is going to piss some people off.
It's a bit of Oscar bait, isn't it?
It is. I mean, when the trailer came out a few months ago, I could feel it coming from a mile away. Like December release, famous musician,
A-list actor,
a young A-list actor who had Chalamet had any nominations before?
I think so. Actually, didn't he get Call Me by Your Name? Got nominated.
Nominated for Call Me by Your Name before, but and to be fair, I grew up with the music of Bob Dylan. My dad was a huge fan. He had all the albums. We listened to them very regularly. So I knew all the songs, it was, and in that sense, I was along for the ride. It's always nice to hear the songs come up again if you grew up with them. And Chalamet's doing his own singing, so that was an element to it. Like he does a very, very solid job of imitating Bob Dylan's singing style. So that was cool. But like you were saying, it does not move the needle in terms of like innovating on this formula. It is a musician biopic through and through. There's not like, if you've seen one, you've seen this one. It's got the typical, like, young guy arrives in the city, gets his career going, gets a lucky break, meets a few, important people, has his first major hit, turns that into a bit of success. Then success starts to wear on him. He feels like he needs to expand himself artistically, musically. He has challenges with the personal relationships. And then it builds to some big performance that's supposed to kind of reflect back on the journey that he's been on so far. And then it closes out with like, all right, now he's going off into the sunset. So all of this, like, we were talking about this before we started recording, but I apply what I call the walk hard test to these movies, which is if the 2007 Jake Kasdan movie Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, if that movie can satirize a new musician biopic, maybe that new musician biopic is not that great. It could be solid, it could be fine, but it isn't that innovative.
But it just follows a certain formula.
And this movie is definitely that formula. And you can find all the spots in A Complete Unknown that match up with the jokes from Walk Hard. And that can be fun.
Really strong cast.
That can be fun on its own. But it does have a really strong cast. Monica Barbaro's in there as Joan Baez. She does her own singing too. That's really good. Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, Boyd Holbrook as Johnny Cash.
Okay, how was that?
He had Johnny Cash's swagger down, like the man that Johnny Cash was off stage. But his singing is not not Johnny Cash level. I would say Joaquin Phoenix is what is.
Well, yeah, I was going to say it's hard to do, but Joaquin Phoenix did like a really good job, actually.
And I think the only reason James Mangold couldn't cast him again and make it part of the Walk the Line cinematic universe is because Joaquin Phoenix is too old now to play Johnny Cash at that point in his life. So.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, we do have de-aging technology.
We do, yeah. That was
just got to give Robert Zemeckis a call on speed dial.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah,
But was this a vehicle for Timothée Chalamet, or is like the film itself quite solid?
I would say the film is solid, but it's just not memorable. Like I said, like you can see any musician biopic and you'll know how this one will go. So the question is, are you going to enjoy it as like a good movie, or are you going to hear the songs? Mm-hmm. Like, are you just going to a concert? So yeah, if you're a fan of Bob Dylan at all, it's probably a decent use of your time. Or maybe if you want to learn a little bit about what he brought to music, it follows a very specific phase in Bob Dylan's life. It only goes up as far as like 1965, I think. It's just covering the infamous event where Bob Dylan goes electric, where he goes from being a folky guy playing acoustic guitar to deciding to use electric instruments at this one concert at the Newport Folk Festival in 1965. And it just sends the folk world into an uproar. And the song that he plays at that concert is Like a Rolling Stone, which we, music fans know as like...
It's where the title comes from, right?
Yeah. But music fans know Like a Rolling Stone is like one of the greatest songs of all time. It's everything, like the music, the lyrics, it's like a masterpiece. And it's funny to watch all of the extras in the crowd in this movie, like booing it because they don't know what they're getting in the moment. But then, with the, hindsight being 2020 and everything, we know that it went on to become like this critically acclaimed, hugely popular, all time, like quadruple platinum type of song. So it's just funny to see those kind of moments.
Like even film is really funny like that, eh? Like there's some films that at the time we're like, oh, this is fantastic. And then we look back on it and we're like, how did we ever get this so wrong? Like Crash, for example.
Yeah.
And there are other films that are like, we're like, oh, I don't think it's that good. Doesn't, get the respect it deserves. And then 10 years from now, we look back and we're like, how did we ever miss this?
It's just they have the misfortune of coming out at the wrong time or whatever.
Or just like, we honestly are very, very poor at deciding what's good and what's not.
But yeah, I'd recommend this to Bob Dylan fans or folk music fans.
I'm probably going to watch it.
You would watch it?
On streaming.
It's a good streaming watch. It happened to come out at a time when there wasn't anything else in theaters that was competing with it for me. So I was happy to see it. But yeah, I would have probably waited for streaming on this one.
It's kind of like the Buddha list, right? Like I want to see it. I really want to, but I don't know if I can sit 4 hours in a movie theater. That's really pushing it.
The question though is, does Timothée Chalamet have a chance against Adrian Brody for that movie?
No, I think Adrian Brody has locked this up.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's, you know what? The last time he played like sort of like a similar character was in The Pianist. And he was brilliant at that. Yeah, and he won for that, right?
And he won for that, so yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I mean, if we're going through it now, counting out Coleman Domingo, who I haven't seen Sing yet, but I don't think it's Ralph Fiennes. So it's between Brody, Chalamet, and Sebastian Stan. And we'll get to The Apprentice in a bit. I really liked Sebastian Stan, but I think he's probably ahead of Chalamet, but I feel like Adrian Brody, just considering the scope of the film and the subject material, I feel like he's got this locked up.
They used to say that having won before was hurt your chances, but we've seen lots of double and triple winners by this point, so it's definitely possible.
Well, that was also like 20 years ago when he won for the Pianist,
yeah. So, and that was
like, it's crazy. I remember that film like it was almost like yesterday.
It's a Roman Polanski movie, isn't it? Like,
yes, it is. So
yes, it's almost like
he didn't show up for the award that year. I'm pretty sure.
Well, he can't leave Switzerland, so
yeah. So.
He's not allowed in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair point. Yeah.
He gets arrested the second he goes to accept an Oscar.
Yeah. But yes, it's been 20 years. I think the Academy is kind of like, I don't think they like it when people win in consecutive years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although they've had like makeup calls all the time. Like the DiCaprio and Denzel Washington stuff still like bothers me.
Well, that is a complete unknown. Should we talk about The Apprentice? This is very topical considering what's happening in the news.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. People, they hire me because I'm a winner.
How do you win?
The first rule is the simplest. Attack, attack, attack.
It's going to be the finest building in the country. In the world. It's going to be spectacular.
So The Apprentice is basically a biopic about Donald Trump. It follows just a portion of his life from the 70s to about the mid 80s when he really becomes popular. So in the early 70s, Donald Trump is still very much in his 20s. He's learning the business of the trade. He still has a relationship with his father. He's just met Roy Cohn, whom he has builds a relationship throughout his life as a real estate mogul at the time. Donald Trump is played by Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong plays Roy Cohn. And it's one of those biopics where it is really driven by the performances, and the performances are so good. I think when people play or portray Donald Trump, they make him a caricature. Like if you ever see him on Saturday Night Live, it's like the orange face, it's the hair, it's like the distinct mannerisms. And Sebastian Stan has all that, but it's very toned down. It actually feels like he starts off as not having those mannerisms and then he builds on them throughout the movie.
Right.
So by the end of the movie, he really, really becomes the Donald Trump that we know today, but not at the beginning of the film because he's a different person at that point. And it kind of shows you like his progression from like how he becomes this sort of naive, but very motivated, flawed young man who wants to be really successful at what he does, turn into the person that he is today. So he has like no political aspirations at that time, although he does talk about like being president one day, or someone asks him about it. But that was like true at the time. I believe there's a journalist at the time who like kind of like jokingly said, "Hey, what happens if you run for president one day?"
Right.
But the main crux of the story is his relationship with Roy Cohn and how he becomes the way he is, and also his relationship with his first wife, Ivana Trump, and his father, Fred Trump Sr. And there's some subplots about like his family and his relationship with his older brother, Fred Trump Jr. And there's all sorts of like little details about his life. It's almost like a greatest hits of Donald Trump's life, but they definitely don't portray him in like a very positive light.
No, it would be very difficult for you to get real actors to want to to do that. You could get actors,
and like how would you do it anyway? Like I don't know how you would do it.
You could get James Woods would play him.
Yeah, but I think one of the strengths of this film is that there are certain moments, like tiny moments, where you do feel a little sympathy for Donald Trump, especially when he's younger and he's very impressionable, because he sees all these like powerful people leveraging things, blackmailing people, doing, morally really ambiguous things to get ahead. And he wants the same for himself. He wants to be successful. He believes he can be successful. He believes he's genetically predisposed to be successful.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a big crux of the movie.
Apparently they go as far as to depict the rape, the time that he raped his wife. And the movie got a lot of Trump's people got very mad. I think Trump himself tried to sue or something to block the release of the movie.
Yes, of course.
Over it. But of course, none of it stuck. And that was kind of like a bold choice for the movie to make, because they could have chosen to play it a little safer and not try to enrage anyone with their version of events.
I actually didn't even know that had happened before I went to the movie. So I went to the movie kind of blind. I didn't quite know what to expect. The problem with this, well, not a problem. The reason this film isn't like elevated into like a best picture is because it is somewhat formulaic. It's kind of like watching a person sort of descend into madness. And Sebastian Stan did another movie about that, where he plays like this disfigured person called A Different Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it has certainly certain similarities to that, but Sebastian Stan has really impressed me. I didn't think he was particularly great or compelling as like the Winter Soldier, which is what everyone knows him as from like the Marvel universe.
Sure,
but he's got acting chops. He really did a good job. In Jeremy Strong, like I loved him Succession. He was so good as Roy Cohn. Like I felt he was more of a caricature, but he was quite good. Like he really turned into a different character. Like all his physical acting, the way he spoke, it was all really well done. I do recommend you watch this.
I've been considering it for a few months because I've seen some good reviews of it, but then the other part of me is like, I'm just up to my eyeballs in bad Trump headlines these days, and I don't know if I can take it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, I get it. He's a very difficult person to just be around and watch all the time.
Yeah.
But you're not watching the real Trump, right? Like,
true.
So like, yeah. Like I said, Sebastian Stan, like he's not making a caricature. He's not acting like Trump today, but he's acting Trump as like a younger man. And he was different back in the day.
If there was going to be a more palatable kind of version of it, it would probably be that. Because the Trump of today is pretty reprehensible and pretty hard to just
pretty
like
hard to
put
stomach.
up with. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be like a very memorable film. Like I feel like if this was the 90s, this would be like all over the cable channels all the time. And it's like a movie you kind of stop and watch a little bit because it's that good. But there's been so many biographical films like this as well.
Yeah. It's a pretty tried and true formula. I mean, Complete Unknown follows a lot of those beats too. So yeah, it's something that you wonder sometimes, like, can it be improved? And then, every so often there is a biographical movie that comes along that does actually kind of feel like it's busted stuff up a little bit. Mm-hmm. But
this film, by the way, The Apprentice, got an 8-minute standing ovation at Cannes.
Okay.
But the reception at Cannes always kind of like makes me wonder a little, Like,
well, yeah, they measure the applause in terms of minutes, and sometimes like they get ones that are like 20-minute ovations and stuff.
And for a film that may not, not deserve it, but it's just like sometimes I don't see the same things that they do.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that the Cannes is obviously the most elite of the movie industry, and they have tastes that may not line up with the average moviegoer. So
they're also just really uppity.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Like, who knows why they're applauding? They may be applauding because they had a little bit too much champagne right before the screening.
I think part of it's politics.
And politics, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's part of it's politics is the subject matter, yeah.
Well, the Oscars are coming up on, I think it's March the 3rd. So not too far away, like a month and a bit. We might do a brief little reaction to the eventual winners at some point afterwards, but
maybe right after, since you're going to be here.
Yeah, we could record it right there. Why not?
Do like a live stream. No, please don't do that. Please don't do a live stream.
The one thing that you guys on the West Coast have an advantage is the
time difference.
The show ends at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or something.
Yeah,
so
we can go grab a bite to eat after.
Exactly. It's something that, like, well, growing up on the East Coast, it was something like, oh God, it's like 1 a.m. before the Best Picture gets awarded. And now, like, living like in Eastern time zone, it's a little better because usually, if I'm watching it here, the show ends around like 11. But yeah, it's gonna be a total luxury for it to be 3 hours earlier.
I will say this. I do, for the most part, like Conan O'Brien.
Mm-hmm, I do too.
Who's hosting this year. The second is, I'm kind of hope like it'll never happen, but I hope like another Will Smith level event happens, incident.
Well, that's the
like something just explosive where it makes everyone go, what the heck just happened?
That's the potential of these tweets by Carla Sofia Gascon is like, if she goes, like, does Conan get to make jokes about it or what?
Okay, here's the thing. As the host of the Oscars, you are obligated to roast every single person nominated.
Yes. Yeah, that's the gig.
Yeah. And honestly, if you can't stand it, I mean, certain jokes are like way overboard. You need to like, hit above the waist a little bit. But if you can't take the joke, then, sometimes I think Hollywood makes a sort of show of it feels like they can take a joke, but most of the time I think behind the scenes they can't take a joke. their egos are too sensitive.
The Globes have brought on like hosts over the years, like the Ricky Gervais years were apparently like nasty. Like nobody.
Oh, he had some nasty jokes.
Nobody in the audience was really enjoying themselves. Like he went beyond what most people would consider like a solid roast and just into like straight up like insults.
Yes.
But then like this gal that they got this past running of the Globes, I saw some of her stuff and it was solid. It was one of the better ones I'd seen. So
really, I saw mixed reviews, I guess, but I didn't watch. So
it wasn't overwhelmingly good, but at least it was better than some of the stuff that I'd seen in previous highlight reels. So there's a slight missed opportunity because I had heard some rumors that they were going to have Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman co-host this year.
I'm kind of over Ryan Reynolds.
I am also over Ryan Reynolds, but I will do anything to get Hugh Jackman hosting again because I maintain that he was one of the all-time great hosts in 2008.
Wait, didn't Hugh Jackman did like a full musical opening?
That's what made it great. It was, and the joke.
He's a showman.
Joke was, it was the financial crisis. So like the Oscars were quote unquote broke. And so he was doing all of these references to the Best Picture nominees that year. They were like made out of cardboard. So like he was climbing up in this like cardboard bat pod from The Dark Knight, and he was like sticking his face in this like cardboard a Benjamin Button display so that he was the different ages and stuff. And it was all like low rent and very kind of cutesy. And I just thought like, I'd never seen the Oscars do anything like that before, and I haven't seen anything like that since then. And I feel like, you know, he proved that he could pull off that show in a really interesting way.
It's a really difficult gig, though.
I also hated Seth MacFarlane's year.
I also never found Seth MacFarlane very funny.
I think it was like 2011, 2012, something like that. He was just like, he'd had this whole song dedicated to seeing all of the female actors who were present at the show, seeing them naked in various movies.
I don't remember this.
The song was like, we've seen your boobs, da 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 da. And it was just very tasteless and crass. And
what do you expect for someone who friggin' makes the cartoons he does?
I know. I don't know what it's like. It makes sense for his style of comedy, but like I don't think it belongs at the Oscars at all.
Again, this is just the Oscars not really knowing what their demographic is. They really don't. It's just hilarious to see.
They would have a far easier time getting more people into the show if they would just stream it on Disney Plus.
Do they not?
No, they don't. I mean, I think this year is the first year they might be putting it on Hulu.
Okay, which is Disney Plus up here.
But except they've sold the rights here to just CTV.
Oh, God.
So you still have to have a TV subscription.
Okay, I take it back. Because, Rob, we're going to go to see the Oscars and every commercial is going to be some stupid CTV show.
Well, that's the Oscars, though. So, yeah, that's coming up. And we'll see what comes of them. Should we briefly look ahead to what's coming out in the next few months that we're excited about?
Yes. Actually, I think 2025 is shaping up to be like a really interesting year, isn't it? Okay. When I say that, Rob, you should get excited because I don't say that often.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go back to this. Where was it? Did I send it to you in WhatsApp? Hang on. Yeah. Okay. So the Criterion Collection did an article talking about all the upcoming stuff this year. And it just made me so excited because it was mostly like art house stuff that they were covering. But, you know, we've got new films from Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, a couple from Richard Linklater, 2 different ones from Steven Soderbergh. There's a new one from Noah Baumbach, new Guillermo del Toro. Maggie Gyllenhaal is directing something.
Okay, interesting.
We got a new Bong Joon-ho coming out in a couple of months, Mickey 17.
Yes.
Yorgos Lanthimos has got a new one coming out.
Well, there's also like a lot of actors and actresses who are kind of like making kind of comebacks.
Yeah.
Like Bridget Jones' Diary is coming back.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
Renee Zellweger. There is Ke Huy Quan. He's got that Love Hurts sort of like action comedy.
Action comedy, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's his first leading role in a film, if I'm not.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
Like Frankie Muniz is back. Like
yep.
Martin Campbell has got a new movie coming out, and it's like an action movie. It's actually got Daisy Ridley in it, which I don't think we've not seen since Star Wars, I feel like.
She's been doing like some small things. There was a few indie movies that I've seen trailers for, but yeah, nothing.
Yeah, but nothing like this. She had that film with, was it Tom Holland that you saw?
No, I didn't see it. I couldn't find it after it. It had like a really messed up release. Lynn Ramsey's going to be back with a Jennifer Lawrence movie.
Oh, love them both.
This isn't coming out until probably next year, but Greta Gerwig's next directing project is The Chronicles of Narnia.
No way. There's a new Chronicles of Narnia coming out?
Yeah, Netflix got the rights a few years ago and they gave it to Greta Gerwig.
Okay, you just like totally like rained on it.
I know.
Netflix has it? Oh my God.
But they're
going to screw it up.
But see, what they want is they saw, love or hate Rings of Power, but they saw what Prime was doing with Rings of Power, pumping money into it. And they were like, we want that, but for our own fantasy series. So they got the rights to Narnia. They held on to them for a few years. And then they apparently Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach pitched them on an idea for it. So,
oh my God.
Like, because Greta Gerwig made a deal with the devil by teaming up with Mattel, and Barbie was way better than it had any right to be.
But the Chronicles of Narnia is a straight fantasy.
All I'm saying is, like, I trust Greta Gerwig. I've liked everything she's made so far. So if there's going to be anyone who would do it well, it would be her.
Fine.
The Safdie brothers are coming back this year.
Oh, nice.
So Josh Safdie is making, he's going to try to give The Rock an art house movie.
You lost me again.
So it's called The Smashing Machine, where The Rock is playing. He's actually trying to act this time. He's not doing like a Disney adventure. And The Rock is going to play Mark Kerr, who's a mixed martial arts guy, a wrestler. Anyway, it's in his wheelhouse of types of characters he can play. But yeah, it's going to be an A24 like serious drama. Co-starring Emily Blunt.
Well, she doesn't excite me as much as she did before. Ryan Coogler is back with Michael B. Jordan in Sinners.
Yeah, that's a vampire movie, isn't it?
Something like that.
Something monstery.
The Accountant sequel. I love the first movie.
Oh, yeah. That's been a long time coming.
Yeah, one of the best faux superhero movies out there.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell is back with Coconada.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Oh, really? Okay. It's called A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Coconada is a director. It's got Margot Robbie and Colin Farrell in it, and it's a Sony Pictures.
Shoot it into my veins.
And it's a May 9th film. It's a summer film. All
right. Well, that is what we're looking forward to in 2025. Some of this stuff may not actually come out until 2026, but we are hotly anticipating all of those things, and you can bet that the best ones will, and some of the worst ones will get covered here on the show. So stay tuned for that. But until then, my name is Robert Snow in Toronto.
And my name is Jason Chen in Vancouver. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
The Extra Buttery Podcast is written, recorded, and produced by Jason Chen and Robert Snow. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to rate and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. And remember, popcorn is always better with extra butter.